We're ready.
Walked them through that process. It was rough. It was a couple weeks.
Not looking forward to that. Okay, good evening and welcome to our work session, July 7th, 2013. Please call the roll.
Mayor Brewer.
Here.
Mr. Kaiser.
Here.
Mr. Norris.
Here.
Mr. Dearie.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Here.
Mrs. Monroe.
Here.
Mr. Messerly.
Yeah.
Okay. All accounted for.
Okay, and also present we have the city manager, city attorney, and city auditor are present this evening. I did provide you an additional copy of the agenda. We did add item 4D, which is a liquor license. We'll get to in a moment. Other than that, the agendas are the same, but please refer to the one that was provided to you tonight. So we did have two ordinances remaining from as previous business. The first is ordinance 073, which is the second reading or adoption of the proposed 2016 city pay plan. And then 075 is the second reading of the proposed 5-year capital improvement plan. Would there be any questions or discussion that we need to address this evening? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to new business, item 3A.
I'm ready. He's standing already. Mayor Mills.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, Pat.
We'll go right through that. Okay, 3A, this is an ordinance approving a supplemental in the capital improvement fund in the amount of $40,000 for repairs to the northbound ramp of bypass 48 at Main Street. There's a summary sheet in your packet, including a photograph. I'm sure many of you have been on that ramp.
It's been bad for at least a year.
It's been bad for a while. We thought we could sort of string it along with some patching, and it's not obviously working out. We've had several complaints of tire damage there, and it can't wait until we get to that, what it really is a phase 2 of the bypass repaving, which is 2 years away now. So it needs to be addressed, and it is really a kind of triage, if you will, on that section of roadway.
What section of the budget is this going to affect?
It's going to come out of 408, which is the capital improvement fund.
I'll sponsor that.
So this is going to cost $40,000 to repair, and then 2 years from now, I mean, how is that going to work? I mean, is that an overlay? Is this just a cost that we're going to have to eat?
It probably will not be, since it'll be only 2 years old. At that point, it won't be resurfaced.
It'll be
phase 2.
Okay.
It'll be substantially
So a
new.
patch job or a substantial?
No, this
patch?
is this will be base repair. Because you can see that, you know, towards the edge of the pavement, the base is gone. That's why it's not holding any of the patching.
Okay.
So it'll be a full length base repair as needed, and then a resurfacing. But it's a rather long ramp.
Oh, so we're doing the entire ramp?
Yeah, I think we're gonna. There's no point really just throwing a patch on it.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
we're gonna have to get to it anyway.
Okay.
So we're just really kind of doing part of phase 2.
So we're just
a little bit
jumping the
earlier,
gun on this.
right?
Okay.
And the
That
base
makes-
repairs, we'd be doing that anyway. Even
Okay.
though we've got OPWC and ODOT urban paving dollars that we're using to pay for a substantial portion of the bypass repaving, a base repair would be a city responsibility.
Okay.
And I missed the sponsors that you.
The mayor and Mr. Norris.
Okay. Item B is a supplemental in the general fund for legal services, legal service expenses. We did simply not budget enough to support this year's requirements.
Jeez, Mark.
I don't know if Mark wants to talk about that a little bit, but it's just been a.
Is this principally because of NIPCO?
Well, that's a factor, but there were several sort of specialized real estate transactions that were done also, as well as workers' comp matter that's being handled over the Court of Common Pleas. So it's really just we some years we luck out, some years we don't. This was a year that we didn't.
I was a Rotary, and someone asked me about a lawsuit against the city by Scramese or somebody.
Scramese, yeah. That's.
I hadn't. I was kind of embarrassed to say I don't know a thing about it.
Yeah, it's not really a lawsuit by Scramese against the city. The city has asked that Mr. Scramese bring two of his properties into compliance with the property maintenance and zoning codes. There were signs on two of his properties on Columbus Avenue that, in contravention of the code, didn't actually advertise any ongoing business on those properties. The signs were in the nature of pole signs, something that the City Council in past years has disfavored. So what the code says basically is, paraphrasing, that if there's a blank sign, a blank pole sign on a person's property for a period of over 6 months, that sign location's forfeited. Doesn't mean they couldn't have a different kind of sign there, but as far as a pole sign goes, that sign location's forfeited. So if Mr. Scramese had a lot of notice of this.
Oh, yes. It's been on material for.
Well, it's been on the code violation report for several months. That's where it lists the active court actions, of which Scramese, I think there's technically 2 of them.
There are.
2 different cases, but.
So in
One of them
times
being the Exit Realty location on Columbus Avenue. Is the other one next door to it, or how, whereabouts?
The other one is the former movie gallery.
The movie
by
gallery.
where Papa John's Pizza is located, and that strip that's owned by Scramese Properties.
Yeah, so but the city's not paying, I'm just doing that as part of.
Okay, I'm just
general-
curious, in times of economic downturns, and if you have an empty building and you're trying to rent it or trying to sell it, it could take more than 6 months, so but that's what the ordinance says, 6 months?
That's what,
Yeah,
that's
it
what the
does.
code says at this point.
Mhm.
It was a period substantially in excess of 6 months. We're not out there asking the court to tear it down at 6 months in a day. These were fairly long-term, ongoing, please get your property into compliance, and there was just
And so once the sign's down, does that make it even harder to rent it or sell it?
I guess it depends on what the tenant wants. There are other types of signs available, and there are some things that really are advertising signs that aren't considered signs, like signs in windows, painted window sign. But to say it's more or less profitable, I think a good argument can be made that there is a value to a pole sign because they're very visible. That's why most cities don't care for them, because they're not always the most attractive. And they also have a tendency to distract people if they're driving, depending on what the sign looks like. They, depending on, again, where they're located, can also detract from the safety of pedestrian or vehicular traffic. And those are all policy decisions that were incorporated into the code. Of course, the code's done by ordinance, so if council wanted to look at the code and change that part of the code, that would be council's discretion. But at this point, anyway, the code calls for.
It's really it's a limited grandfathering of the pole-mounted signs.
Right.
And there's really, and this was an item of lengthy discussion, 10 years or so ago when the new code was, when the code was updated and reviewed by the Technical Review Committee, which is really a community group of stakeholders that came together to review, the proposed changes to the zoning code. And this was, I believe, I recall, a topic of discussion, because there's really 2 different approaches to the grandfathering part of this. Some communities grandfather, in this case, pole-mounted signs, or really anything that's been superseded by new code that's no longer authorized. And you can grandfather in 2 ways. You can grandfather by time. You can say, okay, from this day forward, that, for example, the 10-year clock is ticking. Okay, 10 years from now, all pole-mounted signs have to be removed, or some other length of time that's deemed to be appropriate. And the idea there is that you're pulling people into compliance with this new standard, but you're allowing them to depreciate or get more service life out of their investment in this sign. So that's one way. Some communities do it that way. The discussion or the tact that the TRC wanted to take was something a little bit more gentle than that, is to say, okay, you can keep the sign as long as it's in active use, but when it becomes placed in inactive use or goes dormant for 6 months, then it loses its status as a legal non-conforming sign. And so that was viewed as, a kinder, gentler way, I guess, to impose this limited grandfathering. One way is a little bit more of a quicker pull on the Band-Aid. The other way is, a little, I think maybe a little more painful in terms of compliance. So here we are. We had to take this in front of a judge to get compliance. That's what this case is.
Okay.
It's currently set for trial on August 11th in the morning, probably half a day.
Was there a
trial.
continuance? Because wasn't it supposed to be the end of June? I thought the hearing was the end of June.
There was a pre-trial near the end of June.
Okay.
I think that was on June 30th.
Yeah.
That was the pre-trial conference, and it was set for trial on that day, August 11th.
August 11th. Okay.
Probably a half a day.
Is that in Muni Court?
It is.
Okay.
Be in front of the magistrate.
And part of this conversation turned into several people stating that Lebanon is not real friendly towards businesses. Sometimes new businesses coming in, and with sign ordinances, and the fact that there was a problem with the Chrysler dealership and some of the things they had to go through. I'm just wondering if it might not be good to put another. It's been 10 years since there was a citizens group that looked at it. Maybe we should have some businesses and citizens look at some of that again.
Well, that's certainly up to City Council. The flip side of that discussion, this so-called, non-business friendly zoning code, I get a lot of feedback from retail operators on particularly the Columbus Avenue corridor, which is really, I think, certainly a target of our code in terms of trying to uplift that corridor. What I get challenged on is, why aren't you doing more to uplift the corridor and make it more aesthetically pleasing? And one of the ways is to enforce the existing code more efficiently or more, I guess, consistently. And that's kind of what spawned this code violation against these pole-mounted signs that were, one was advertising the movie gallery. It's been closed for a long time.
Years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
He could have rented that sign to the Papa John's or some other user on that strip, and it didn't happen.
He could have
Yeah.
very easily,
Do like
done the
you-
same with
Right.
Scramese Properties. I mean, he could have, he could have put a sign up in use.
Well, one thing he has done in response to the violation notice is paint in white paint over the movie gallery part of it. So that's not really the standard that we would like to achieve on that corridor.
Is that what Neo's doing when they say coming soon or watch this side or whatever they've done?
Possibly.
Possibly, I don't know, but in theory they could lose that pole-mounted sign if it's allowed to go dormant. It appears that they're doing. I don't know. I don't really see a lot of activity in there. Maybe they're doing it at night.
I believe they're coming to planning next month.
Yeah.
My thought is, and having been around a long time and seeing what Columbus Avenue looked like and what it has become, has been some major changes to the positive. Those people, and I don't hear it very often that we're not very business friendly. I don't really hear that. I hear what Pat hears is that really cleaning that up when you have a business that invests a great deal of money in their property, they want others to follow suit. And Columbus Avenue has come a long way. It still needs work. There's some next to Dairy Queen. New restaurant is coming, which will totally change the look of that property to the great. So a lot of good things are happening, but I would not be in support of lessening our guidelines and our regulations. You go to too many communities. I've been traveling to too many communities, and when you don't have those regulations and those guidelines, your communities just they can fall apart. The look can fall apart very quickly.
Well, and just to be clear in this case, and again, it applies, broadly, but the code's not telling this property he can't have a sign.
Right.
We're saying he has to have a more modern sign, has to be code compliant, it's gotta be the ground mounted,
Right.
there's different styles, and what the BZA, the Board of Zoning Appeals, has done in situations where owners are in good faith trying to, or in response to the code, trying to, retrofit a ground mounted sign on their property, but there's limited, it wasn't designed as part of the original design, so the setbacks aren't there, they're not available. The BZA's been very good about working with them, right, to waive the dimensional, to get those variances, to get the ground mounted sign fitted in there, because in a lot of cases they weren't, the sign wasn't designed into, the property when it was originally built. So those cases do go to BZA, and they've been, I think, pretty consistently supportive of granting the variances to allow them to put those ground mounted signs in.
To give you an example, or to give you some statistical background, okay, we filed numerous cases based on zoning violations of the property maintenance code. We've had one go to a hearing with Mr. Ballinger, who just didn't want to bring his property into compliance because he just didn't want to. We tried to work with him for years, and we took that to a hearing, and now this one's going to a hearing. Other than that, everyone else who's had a complaint filed against them has brought their property into compliance prior to the thing having to go to hearing, which is what we're sort of counting on. Okay? I mean, most of the code maintenance is based on notification to people that this is getting serious and then filing a suit. But more than 9 out of 10 of them we dismiss before they go to a hearing. In this case, this property owner just doesn't want to follow the code, which is his right to contest in court, and that's what we're going to do. We'll put our evidence up, and he can put his evidence up, but not suggesting that the zoning code should or shouldn't be looked at, but I guess I would question if somebody were to say that the city wasn't bending over backwards to try to help people get into compliance with the zoning code. That's not been my experience. Most of these folks have more than adequate advance notice, have been notified by certified mail well prior to a suit ever being filed. And then after a suit's filed, this case has been filed for months. He could bring his property into compliance now and
just file a motion to dismiss.
And we would dismiss it if it was in compliance with the zoning code. But there just doesn't seem to be any.
The problem regarding this particular situation is that you've got, if you look at Columbus and you look at the corridor, you've got the northern corridor and the southern corridor. The northern corridor being more up to date, as far as the newer properties and stuff being brought into compliance, especially with the new zoning codes and what have you. You can see essentially day and night what Columbus look like versus what we want it to look like. Mr. Scramisi has been made available, been made aware of these transitions years ago, and had an opportunity to bring his complaints in force back then, correct? And so the thing that sucks about this is that Exit Realty, when they looked at the property, they were not made aware of the whole issue, okay? Scramisi knew about it, okay? And he neglected to tell the tenant about the code, okay? And that's where really a lot of the propensity of this issue is coming into play, because the tenant's the one that's being screwed here, because they're trying to put up a sign, and Scormese is protesting based on a constitutional issue or technicality, and that's why he's taking it to court. So in the meantime, you've got a tenant that's arguing, we want a sign up, and they can't have one because this is in play.
I would think if at least didn't address that, we would have an issue back with our.
That's between the
property
tenant
owner.
and Scormese, but
Right.
in the meantime, it's now between Scormese and the city of Lebanon, and until that gets resolved, the issue with the tenant is still.
Yeah, but when a business wants to put a sign up, and I want to put a sign up, I don't talk to my landlord to ask him what kind of sign I can put up. I ask the city. Because the landlord doesn't have anything to say with
Well,
what kind of sign I can
oddly
put up.
enough,
The city does.
the tenant
Right.
came to the city and was given false information and brought information to get the sign taken care of, and then was talked to by Sam, and that information was kind of.
That's not my
Leaves.
understanding at all, because I actually
I
talked
got that from the tenant.
to
directly.
to the person that owns the business and I've talked to them and my sense was that the city did in fact tell them what they could and could not do. So, I'm gonna say one more thing, Scormese, if you take a look at your property maintenance reports on a monthly basis, he is continually in there of violations, violation after violation after violation, as he owns numerous properties.
Always
So
the
this
same
is,
names.
it's
Always the same names.
it's always the same name,
Yeah.
so he, in many of his properties, is not compliant. This one will go to court, other ones he does the minimal what he needs to do, and his name's taken off. So he is a major culprit in terms of property maintenance issues, they're continual.
So Exit Realty couldn't put up a sign, and that would bring it back into compliance.
Not
No.
exactly.
Because we've already made it an injunction saying you failed, sign is now
The
illegal.
sign, the pole mounted sign that was there prior to Exit Realty leasing the property was already
Had already been deemed-
non-compliant.
Okay.
So
it
what
already passed that
transpired
6-month
between
period.
the property owner and the leasee, I don't know.
Okay.
It would appear, based on my conversation with the Exit Realty guy, I forget the gentleman's name, that, you know, he didn't know that the sign wasn't gonna be allowed to be used. He rented the property
Yeah.
with the understanding he would be able to use the sign. So he may have a civil claim against the landlord, I don't know, it's not really the city's, you know, business at this point. Our violation is with the property owner. We deal with property owners,
Mhm.
not really with leasees.
I agree.
And the leases would be against Scormese.
Mhm.
But if his contract, if it wasn't spelled out in his contract, he was misled by the landlord then.
And again, he can still have a sign there, it just can't be that sign. It's gotta be a ground mounted code compliant sign. So we're really talking about, you know, and it's fine, I'm not saying this negatively, but we're talking about money.
Mhm.
Okay, they don't wanna spend the money, which is fine, I understand, it's overhead, but it's about money, it's not really about advertising.
Yeah,
It's
makes
about
sense.
the expense of upgrading the property into the new code, and they don't wanna do it. Okay. Anyway, good discussion,
So, but that doesn't affect this 50,000.
Doesn't.
no.
Getting back to where the question started from.
And just to put it in perspective, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we budgeted $90K for legal expenses. That includes the contract with Taft for Mark, so that's 55 or so. So we really don't have a lot of litigation or additional legal expenses budgeted. And we've had a couple of years where we've done well. We've only spent maybe 75 or 80. And so, you know, we budgeted pretty lean on that.
These days when you do well, I do very poorly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, what it just happens. We have a bad year, but we have, you know, 90K based on the recent history looked like enough on paper, but you can burn through 35K in legal expenses pretty quick, as you can imagine. So we're really not a terrible year, but we are short, and we've had some, like Mark said, some complex real estate issues. One of which was the land swap. We just closed on that yesterday, finally, between the city and the school district. and Mr. Messer sponsored that. So, will there be any other discussion on that item? Okay. Moving on to 3C. This is an ordinance approving a 3-year contract with a new provider for the overhead line clearance, vegetation removal in support of the electric department. The lowest and best bid was Municipal Energy Services, which is an agency of AMP. There's a summary sheet in your Friday packet outlining the bid results, and they're all pretty tight. But the lowest bid is essentially AMP, and that is a 3-year contract. That's with an estimated cost of $558K over the 3-year life of the contract.
Mr. Messer's responsible.
And what's the reasoning for the emergency language on this one?
The contract expires in August. The existing contract with
We only have 2 meetings in July.
the existing contract with Nelson expires in August, and this is your last. Next week is your last meeting in July. So in order to prevent an underlap,
July and
we're
December,
recommending
we
emergency
should have just
language.
2 meetings.
So there would be what?
So
2 weeks we couldn't trim trees or what?
Well, it'd be more than that, because you have to wait 30 days after the second reading, so we wouldn't be trimming trees until sometime in September.
And there's a reason why contracts lapse.
Oh.
Okay.
Bring that up later.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to D. This is an ordinance approving the purchase of the 2 electric substation transformers for the Columbia Mill Road Electric Substation Project. There's a summary sheet in your packet outlining the bid process. Typically with large or the more complex electric systems, we will use a consultant to review the bid tabulations, the bid submissions, and do really a life cycle ownership or an owner life cycle cost analysis to help identify what the best, the lowest cost bid is. And we used, as in the past, we did use GPD. GDP again, and those that summary sheets in your packet. Mr. Messer.
I will do.
So, Delta Star is delivery requirements for the spring of 2016? Is that what I read back here? On this.
Which page are you referring to, sir?
Page 2 of the GPD group, directed to Mr. Coffey. Summary section.
So your question is, the delivery, is it the spring of 2016?
Yeah.
That was what was spec. That was what was spec'd. There is these are custom manufactured. Once they're ordered, they're not considered an off-the-shelf item because of their high cost. So there's obviously an order to ship lag of several months while they're actually manufacture the item.
It's from Lynchburg, so it's got to be.
Okay.
Okay. Would there be any follow-up questions regarding the legislative lineup for next week? Okay. Moving on to discussion topics, 4A. As Council's has previously discussed, we've been working to get some closure on the Mayor Mills commemorative plaque project. As I mentioned in an email, I did meet with Jay Mills, representing the family. We did tour the building, and I got his feedback on where he would prefer that the plaque be displayed. His preference on behalf of the family is that the plaque be displayed out here in the lobby next to what is really the dedication plaque for the City Hall building. There's a space there between that and the corner of the wall that this plaque will fit. he had previously approved the basic layout, of which has been changed a little bit. Obviously the layout's different than the draft, but he approved the text, and we did send the draft layout down to laser imaging to get it actually proofed. So this is the product that they make on their computer to show the actual size and layout of the plaque prior to the actual engraving. So that's the proof. That's the black part is the actual size of it'll be a black granite plaque, probably a 1/4 inch or so in thickness, and the etching will be done, essentially it'll be white on black. And so it'll look substantially like that drawing.
Looks good.
The total cost is about $725. That includes the setup, the engraving, and they're going to actually mount it for us.
How much?
$725 is the cost of the total cost of the project.
Okay.
I think we were thinking about 500 when we started, but it came in a little higher. So
Two quick thoughts. It is interesting that he preferred that spot opposed upstairs where he did his work, but the term black would not African American be more appropriate?
well, that
Depends on who you
wording was
talk to.
specifically asked for by the family. They wanted it to say he was Lebanon's first black mayor.
I think there's a shift back the other way.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a trend.
Finally.
In our draft, I believe we had African American, and they specifically discussed that, and that's the terminology that they prefer
Then
as
that's what it
family.
That's what should happen, absolutely.
There are a lot of white Africans too.
White Africans.
I mean, really.
Okay,
South
there we
Africa.
go. Okay. Anything else? Jim, did you have another comment?
I'm getting over the last ones.
Okay, okay. All right, B.
So we'll go ahead and get the plaque
Yes.
ordered and mount it up, and then we're all set. Okay, so B. Kind of lost momentum there, didn't we? B is a request for appointment to the Shade Tree Commission. There was an appointment application in your packet. This is from Mr. I think it's Sarashina. Am I saying that correctly?
That looks like
I think so.
There's one vacancy because Randy Duff resigned a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
due to
I think he was one of our council meetings not too long ago, wasn't he? Did he come visit?
Which one was Randy? Was he the older gentleman with the gray hair?
He does have gray hair.
Well, he does have gray hair. He's a former staff member,
Staff member.
retired back in '03 maybe, '04. Former Park and Rec
Yeah.
Rec Director,
Tall.
Yeah.
supervisor.
Okay.
Been on the Shade Tree for a number of years.
So is there a way that we could make that appointment tonight?
It's up, it'd be up to the
Looks
city
like
council.
he's worked with Shade Tree Commission members, and they're very supportive of it. So I would make a motion to appoint Mr. Saracena to Shade Tree Commission.
I would second that.
Thank you. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, likewise. All right, let's go on to the liquor license first.
But before we do that,
Yes.
okay, on the plaque, technically in the bottom it says he served as mayor until 2001. I think stylistically you actually would not capitalize mayor. If you say Mayor Brewer, it is capitalized, but if you say she is the mayor, it is not.
What do you
But,
think? That may be true.
AP style, I'm thinking back to that. And then the question is, then the line above it, it says the first black mayor. So technically it wouldn't. Then the question is, I don't think black would be either, because you don't say white wouldn't be. I mean, African American is capitalized because you're talking about Africa, which is the continent. So I don't think you would capitalize black mayor, and I don't think you would capitalize mayor, only if it's in front of his name. Mayor Mills, yes, because it's like a title, it's like Mr. or Reverend or
I think I
whatever.
would read it, but I think you're right on that.
That's right.
Capitalization.
Absolutely correct in terms of the
Capitalization.
technical, technical correctness.
Just say. I don't think black mayor or mayor.
I'm happy to send you all my emails from now on.
Proofreader.
You can proof them.
Is that English minor? Say it.
Well, it's it used in that sense, it's a noun, not a pronoun, so it would, I think grammatically
So I
it
don't
would
know
not
if
be
that-
capitalized, but I think
references the city of Lebanon directly, it doesn't.
Yeah,
So can that
yeah,
change?
mayor
the
mills, it would be, because
Mayor
it's like a
Mills
title,
or
but
Title,
city
yeah.
mayor.
he was
Yeah.
the first mayor, mayor
Yeah,
isn't
but-
capitalized.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't believe the family has any preference as to what, the capitalization
I
of
won't
that
notice.
sentence.
But
I mean, it should
I
be grammatically
think you
correct.
should, if
so
we
I
can
think
change
from
it, I
that
would.
standpoint.
Okay. I agree.
So black mayor should be not capitalized, and mayor,
Mayor.
just in the very last two
You
lines.
could even change it, served in that position until.
No, just the
Just
capital is
don't
all you need to
capitalize
do
it.
is
Just
change
lower-
that.
Lowercase it.
Yeah, lowercase that.
In the bottom line, okay.
Back to the liquor license, sorry.
That's right.
I'll make a motion over here.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to not,
That's a
for
title.
no need for a, hearing.
You seconded.
For what?
For the liquor?
Yeah,
I don't think we did that, did we?
okay.
I'll second.
No, I didn't have a motion on that.
No motion yet, okay. You're trying to get one.
That's for Mr. Rodriguez, okay.
All those, and this is not, to not have a hearing. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Those opposed likewise.
There's your
Okay,
right.
okay, great. Thank you all. Okay.
We're
Yeah.
on Billy's Burger and Beers.
What?
How do we not have an apostrophe for Billy?
It was on the license request that way, so that's why
The liquor? Yeah,
That's
it's in
how
there.
it's spelled.
Billy's,
It's Billy Bob.
Okay, let's go on to
Bob,
important
Billy.
things.
on their
Jeez.
legal non-conforming sign, there's no apostrophe.
So what are we entitled to here?
Don't know yet.
Oh, it's-
We'll find out. I
can't
would
find
think a
mine
few
either.
$1,000s. I don't know.
Oh,
that it?
here,
There it
it's
is.
here. It's in the one you got today. That's the one they added.
Oh.
He added that today, so it's not in your packet, but it was in
That's
today.
it.
There was a lot of salt bought during that time,
That's
so
why I
11
haven't
million, it's gonna be spread
Yeah.
over,
Thank you.
Yeah.
dozens
Yeah.
and dozens of communities, so I'm guessing somewhere south of 50.
Okay.
That's awesome.
I'm thinking more like 25 or 30K, I'm just guessing.
It's capitalized.
You know,
We'll get what we can get.
Yeah.
probably
very
Ohio
good.
Division of Liquor Control doesn't use apostrophes in their computer stuff.
So I'm for the
I
whole
see that
first
about
page.
the
It's
IRS.
journalism,
The
right?
whole first page, it's a yes for me. Yes.
Okay,
Okay, then it was at the previous work session, I was asked to place item 4C on the agenda for this evening. I did provide council in your packet just the summary of the decision packages that were provided with the large binder. So at this point, Your Honor, I'll turn it over to the council for any discussion that you'd like to have, and we're certainly here to answer any questions that council might have, or do our best to answer them.
okay. Thoughts?
Well, Mark threw out, it's for the front page, correct?
Yep.
Number 2 is down to 15,000, just as an update from my recollection. I think 2 and 3 are negligible with regard to amount of money. The cost of public relations in both cases is not worth it. That would bring us to 760 instead of 779. Well, it's less than that. It would be 15.4 is 19 offset. Yeah, it'd be 760 instead of 779. If we instituted items 1 and 4, and in our discussion, I'm not saying we agree to that. I'm just saying, and then our discussion is mainly on 5 and 6. How do you want to poll the group, Your Honor? Do you want to? I mean, we've been through this umpteen times. But
I know we have.
do you want to have each of us say maybe? And
No.
I'm in favor of doing something, instead of talking about it. I mean, if somebody's got the votes for something, do it.
Yeah.
well, I would.
Trying to come up with, a consensus with the
Well,
majority.
I don't know you're gonna get, you'll get a majority one way or the other, I don't know that you'll get unanimous.
I don't think we're gonna,
No.
no,
Well,
but I don't think
If
we
you
need
got a majority,
unanimous
then a
majority.
majority's a majority, I mean.
Yeah,
Well, then I'll finish my thought. I'm for 1,
Yeah.
4, and 6.
Well, then I'll just jump in and say I would be for 5 before I would be for 6. It's something that could take effect now. 5 would be something that would be a negotiating tool to pass something on the ballot, cause 6 isn't a sure thing. 6 is, you have to get the voters to vote for that. And that's what the original,
Yes.
study had determined, as a way to actually get something done.
You mentioned earlier in our meeting, I totally agree with you in a flat economy. I think manipulating a voter with number 5 is not where I want to go. I can't support 5 on the part of council. I'm for 6 to let them say yes or no.
I saw you shake your head no as well. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Number 5, okay,
Number
just
5.
getting a sense from
Yeah.
people.
Everything you said was true.
Yeah.
And you've made the case for revenue center and so forth.
Mhm.
But it is a major yank, I think, in public relations for this council to tell them.
And the other thing, I would also still be opposed to action 6. I would prefer to see an income tax on the ballot rather than a property tax levy. The income tax is going to affect mostly people who work in the city and use the roads to get to work. It's going to not affect the retirees who have property taxes. It's going to not affect people who live in the city but work outside the city and get the 100% credit. I think that would put us also in line with many other cities in the area as an income taxes are, as we saw on the list, much more than, we're one of the few that's still at 1%.
All
For
true.
a full credit.
All true.
And I think just for those reasons, I think it has a better chance of passing.
Not with our history, it doesn't.
Well, the last time income tax levy was on the ballot was back before the last 2 property tax levies. So and the school's always hitting people for property taxes. I think it's probably time to try again for an income tax levy. Just my thoughts.
What about you, number 5? And you liked 1 through 4 and 6, or just 1 through 4?
If I were to, I don't think the bathroom thing is very big on,
Doesn't really impact.
it doesn't really impact. I would say, if I were gonna support anything, it would be along the lines of a tax, income tax increase. And it would be to fix the problem for good.
So which one do you like?
None of these. So not 5 or 6.
Okay.
So
I can't
That's where-
remember, how big would it have to be to fix it for good?
it was like 0.25%, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So a quarter percent
So
increase.
from 1% to 1.25?
Yeah.
Yeah, cause the property tax is would
I
have
hate
to
it.
be
I believe,
renewed.
I believe that was including a full credit, is that correct?
That was included in full
That was
credit.
Including a full credit?
Including a full credit that brought in about $1.6 million.
As I recall, yeah, I had to.
Yeah, that's.
And I'd prefer that over 5. The only, yeah, over 5. The only reason why I said 5 is it's a tool to maybe get there to make that option 7.
I would agree with that.
You
Yeah, I
support
just
what
don't
you're
wanna,
saying?
I don't wanna.
I didn't say I'd support it, I'm just saying that it makes
I'm
better sense.
asking.
Yeah, I
I'm just
think
asking.
that.
You wanna call that
one
7?
We'll call that 7.
Number 7?
I do like the idea of fixing the problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would like to go to, if I was gonna talk to someone and say, this is our plan to fix this problem, in my opinion, this is like almost there, but I would rather be like, this is what we're gonna fix it. So I don't have to think about it again.
If it has
That's
any
precisely
chance
been
of
the
passing.
entire problem. I mean, the last time that we threw something up there, I mean, it was like throwing crap up on the wall and seeing if it stuck. That was a problem. We had 2 different issues that were going up to the Board of Elections, and it wasn't solving an issue. It was a temporary fix at best.
Any chance it would pass? What do you think, Joe?
No. Now let me ask a question. On the income tax motion, or the energy behind what you're talking about, the people vote, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember, when's the last time an income tax increase was on the ballot?
Probably 10 years
10 years ago?
Income tax was attempted twice. The first time in 2002, it was a 1.5% rate that failed. I don't have that number of what it failed by, but and then again in 2004, the ballot language was asking for a 1.25% rate, and that also failed.
These are in the 20%.
So it's been 11
They weren't
years
even
since
serious.
the last effort.
Now, the only significant difference is when we went from an income tax and we went into an actual fund specific, that we said that this was going to be a road levy. We still failed, but the margin was less than 5% in both set of circumstances. So your swing is less than 2.25%.
I can't remember, can we
I-
legally earmark
Yes.
an increase in income
Not in,
tax?
I don't know
But
if you can.
over a
with
period
the-
of time,
hold-
right?
Hold on, I don't think you can earmark an income tax, but you
You
can
say that?
earmark,
I don't think you can
A levy.
earmark an income tax, you can earmark a levy.
you can earmark a levy. I don't.
You can do an income tax for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, you can do a temporary
Okay.
tax increase.
See, I wouldn't be opposed to
I
that.
looked
Yeah.
at the,
I don't know that, I just,
I went out to the ORC and looked, yeah.
So what do we,
I mean, you could go 5 years, you can, do whatever you wanted.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
well, I
a
agree with
program.
that. I agree with like the school does, was recently explained by our superintendent on the cards, that we do this for voter approval. This isn't a permanent situation
Right.
here.
Right.
And I also think it gives you
And I agree with that totally. Let the voters
Yeah.
evaluate our seriousness.
That gives the city the ability to be able to see the progression over that specified period of time, and if we do our job right as a city, we can advertise those taxable dollars and those projects being done with that capital improvement dollars. And
It's
we
not
can
like you're not
highlight
gonna
that.
see it.
I mean, like, I just give you an example, and I'm
Yep.
sure it's done everywhere, but like in the city of Cleveland, only because I'm raised, and that's where but when they do like a capital improvement project for that particular street, they have a big, it's like 12 by 8 sign, and it's like Cleveland, City of Cleveland, and it has that improvement project, and thank you citizens, blah, 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 blah. So I mean, that highlights anybody who's driving past that particular area can see, boom, that's attributed to that particular project and those funds and those dollars, and that would be a great opportunity to highlight that in that particular case when those projects are being done over that period of time.
From a PR point, yeah.
From a PR point, because if we are doing our job and those projects are doing well and people can see that, when we ask for the renewal, it's not gonna be as much of a fight ongoing from that point.
10 years ago too, when the income tax was on the ballot, that probably would have affected a lot of people, a lot more than it would now. A lot of people that work out of town in other cities are paying more than 1.25 as it is, and they would get full credit for that.
So what I'd be tending to support is a
5-year
5-year 0.25
on the ballot.
on the ballot, and
Get to
make the
run.
ballot language say exactly what it's going to be.
That's tricky.
Like, you can't say, you have to, what do you have to say? What would the wording be?
I've never written the wording
Okay.
for that type of ballot.
Okay, cool.
So I'm
I've
not
seen it. I've
really
seen it in
sure.
other cities. We could just see how they did it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Did we ever answer the question whether you could earmark,
That
effectively earmark?
If it's
I-
temporary,
I know you can do it for a
Levy.
levy, and I know you can limit the amount of time that an income tax. I'm just not sure if you can do a limited purpose income tax.
We would just have to prove to them.
So we could-
We've got to pass
Yeah.
if we want it to be renewed, that we've actually used it for roads.
Right.
The history of income tax addition by the voters in this area
It's old.
is dismal from a school districts tried to do it. I'd be hard pressed to say that anyone was successful except for Goshen, and then they voted it down. I think I'm correct in saying that. The next time when they had a chance. In those words, income tax.
The school district income tax is a little different than a municipal income tax too. The school district income tax is taxed on whoever lives in that school district, no matter where they work. So all the voters that vote for it are voting to be taxed or not to be taxed.
So 10 Lebanon voters, you line up, anyone could repeat that.
Anyone?
I mean, I don't want to be condescending here. I think you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, because.
I think this is such a hot issue when you talk about income tax.
But but if you're comparing income tax on a school district.
I just threw that in for our own awareness.
Okay.
But Jim, you know, people are just as pissed anymore if it's property or if it's income. I mean, quite honestly, I mean, there's property tax increases all the time, you know? I think that if you can spell out that there's a larger group of people, even non-citizens of the city actually paying into it, those that ride those streets, we can make a bullet point to that effect as simplistic as possible, that it's not only just the residents of the city, but those that work inside the city, that may not live inside the city. So we're getting more of a rounder base of individuals than just tagging the property owners of the city.
Our voting in the city plus township for the school district is stellar because there's a high trust factor on, which I think the city has. I don't think our voting public is one who won't vote a tax increase. They've been very supportive of the school district.
You're absolutely right when it comes to the fire levy, okay? And if you look at the targeting scenario, when we're looking at the street levy, okay, from an income tax perspective in years past, it's significant in difference in percentage of votes. More people are in tune with a street levy than they are a general income tax levy. So if we can make those necessary fine-tuning adjustments where that 0.25% is allocated towards street repairs, and we can spell that out, I think that margin, that 2.5% margin, we could be able to close that gap. It's just spelling it out. If we can get that language and we can make it, you know, as simplistic as possible to the people out there, I don't think, and it's going to inclusify more people and just not the property owners of the city of Lebanon. I think it's going to bring in some weight.
Our fire department is well respected.
Hell, the fire department gets more millage than we do as a city.
Yeah, and the people that have
they get 15, we get 11.
EMTs come to their house, and emergency people come to their house from our fire department. They do a super job. They're very.
And what kind of tax is that?
So it just probably makes it easier to pass a fire levy than it would be for any other type of levy in the city would have. And it didn't pass by it. So and it did pass.
I think my point is that I would rather put this up 3 times and fail twice, knowing that it's the right option, than to just put up something because we don't think people understand. I would rather take the time to do it right and do what's best for everyone than to just be like, well, they can kind of get this, so vote yes or no. I'd rather be like, let's mark it here. If we fail, let's mark it some more. If we fail again, let's mark it some more, and eventually I think it'll go through.
Well, I agree with you on the tone of that, but I guess we're not going to agree on which tax then.
Okay.
I agree. That was well said. I'd like you to tack that on to number 6. I think that's where you have a chance. I love it. I think those words income tax, it's just dead.
See, Jim, I respectfully disagree with you on that, because I think the propensity that the people inside the city is that they keep getting hit. property tax after property tax after property tax. And I think that if we can buy in that there are actually more people outside of just the residents of the city of Lebanon that are going to get brought in on this to help support the cost and the overlay of these new expenditures, people will listen, especially if we can earmark that fund.
And it's different with the municipal tax. You know where the money's going. It's going into the city. It's going in for infrastructure of the city. It's not going to the state or the federal government for welfare and other items that don't come back or may only come partially back. Everything within a city comes right back into the city.
And you know, I mean, the information that I acquired regarding the actual, specific fundage, years ago, that came from Tom Rega. And we had a meeting about that, and he talked specifically about people in generalities. They don't believe in a general income tax, because that goes into a bigger pot and it gets meshed away. In this particular instance, we're looking at the same set of scenarios in earmarking those funds, but in an income tax level. If we can do that, if we can merge the two in the income tax aspect and draw in more people, and it can be very simply explained. I really think we can do that. Then you've got some weight.
Mark, question for you. Can it be that specific in terms of writing what would be on the ballot? I would have to say that as I hear you all speak, that I definitely could definitely support that. But I want to be assured that it can be specifically earmarked for that.
Yes,
That it's not that
Absolutely.
that as other people are saying, generalizing, that it can be very specific, because as I think what Jim has said, we have a knowledge base of what we're talking about. Let's face it, guys, voters, there's a lot of ignorance out there. And that's one thing that we have to do. But if we can make it easier for ourselves to make it more specific, that helps us in our job to market it. I like the idea of, people that do not live in the city, who work within the city.
Not to mention, Mayor, more people are more in tune with the streets of the city. So whenever there's an issue that's being spoken of, and it brought streets, they're going to listen, and they're going to be more intent. And if we can spin the proper story with the proper amount, with the correct information, if we can, larger group of people, we're not hitting the residents, it's inclusive in nature, it's drawing more people outside of the city of Lebanon, which means more money,
And
which is
hitting
solving
retirees.
which is hitting a broader group of people,
No,
and it's
no.
fixing the problem,
The rest of us are
You
never
know,
gonna be able to retire, so.
providing a
We don't have
solution.
a lot of
Somebody has
sympathy.
to.
Right.
Not just throwing crap up against the wall and seeing if it sticks, but this is,
But
And
we're,
if
then
you-
we're, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just,
No.
the point I love about the roads, if we could get it earmarked for the roads, is that you can spend 1/4% now to maintain the roads, or whatever that factor is, 7 times as much later to rebuild the roads. Roads, you get a much better bang for your buck if you pay up front and you maintain them. I think that's easy to understand.
we tried that, it's not as easy as you think.
Really?
It really isn't.
Did you
know,
want to say something?
Just wanted to let everybody know, I think what everybody's already aware, but the ballot deadline is the
Yeah.
5th of August.
It has to be next meeting, I figured that.
Or you're gonna, and the ballot language is gonna have to be dead on. I mean, there can't be
Dead
any
on.
mistakes with it, because you're gonna have to come back and
That's-
Better
re-adopt.
decide tonight.
We
I'm
need
not
time
hearing
to
Well, we
lots
don't,
of
we don't have the legal opinion yet as to whether or not we can do it, but you're, obviously,
Well, it's not gonna be on the ballot
this
till
is the,
November.
But the ballot language has to be at Board of Elections by August 5th.
Right, but we don't have to market the language now. We just have to decide what the language is gonna be, right?
Well, we have, yes.
Right.
We just have to make sure the language is accurate.
Yeah, this is, yeah,
Is-
'cause you
is
can't change
basically,
it, and
can't
you're out of
change it.
luck.
Folks, again, we're not headed in the right direction in my view. I mean, I think the voters vote for who they trust. They didn't trust the last Career Center vote. It was defeated 2-1. It's property tax. I think tax word anyway is toxic right now.
So you're for none?
And combine that, I'm for something.
Okay.
But combine that with the words income tax. I don't think so. We have a terrible history, it's old. School districts can't pass income taxes.
I would agree with you, and I understand where you're coming from, Jim, but this is a hybrid, and this has never been done before, and I think that in retrospect, if we can explain that, again, we're not just targeting property owners, and let's throw this out another caveat. Renters are included in this, okay? So it's not just property owners, okay? These are renters, they're property owners, and they're people that live outside of the city that happen to work inside the city of Lebanon. So we're going after two different counterparts, and we're solving a problem. Okay, this isn't a portion. This isn't a mere allocation.
Sounds like you're all in.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that if we're looking at an option, and but Mark, in retrospect, this is actually a solution of sorts.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
You know, this isn't
Well,
a myriad of.
And it's not gonna affect the people who live in the city and are working in another city that's at 1.25
And this
or
is
higher.
still
So
providing a full
they
credit
could
to
vote for
those
it
that
because
already
it's
get
not gonna
credit.
affect them. And then there's other people who
Those
don't even
that
live
have
in the
gotten
city
the
who
credit
can't even vote.
before
It's gonna affect.
are still getting the credit as long as it's over, you know, wherever
Right.
they're at is over at 1.25 or higher. And most of those cities are.
I'm not necessarily against the logic. I'm against the chances we have.
But here's the thing though, Jim, okay, and let me throw this out at
No,
you
I
as
can't-
well.
I don't have a crystal
Just
ball.
as Mark said, and this is what I've always alluded to as well, is that this is actually something that if it does fail, it's something that could be repeated and expound on 2 or 3 times down the road because it's correct. That it's more of a solution than half of a piece of pie.
And I would say, all these is gonna be a really tough sell.
What?
And you know what, I have every expectation
And-
that we
And-
may not be successful the first time, but I'm of the opinion of, let's do it right.
And
Let's
there's a
not
time
put a
limitation.
Band-Aid on.
There's a time limitation. People love time limitations. This isn't permanent.
Number 6 is a 5-year Lebanon. Now, to the point that if the solution talk and reaching higher numbers and whatever, I remember now, I kept staring at that number for number 6, for example, because I think I was at rest with, I think that's a good amount for us to try to get. I don't think we can get the ball of wax. So, you know, these numbers, an estimate down there that I was for 770,000 total, is a great step forward for Lebanon in our voting history and the flat economy.
A couple thoughts. I think several of you alluded to the possible necessity to do it multiple times. It does seem like historically, in not just here, but in all kinds of communities, that you just keep doing it, you'll get it eventually. You know? It's kinda like the media, they just keep saying something over somebody just makes it true all of a sudden. And the other point is that if you get a 5-year levy passed and it doesn't completely solve the problem, which it wouldn't at that amount, then people are like, see, it didn't make a difference.
Right.
Never do that again.
It's gonna be half of what we need.
Right, and because it either it's gonna fix the problem or it's not. If it doesn't fix the problem, then you're like, well, I spent this extra, I got taxed essentially, this extra amount.
For
and,
what?
And it didn't do it.
Well, we would
And
do-
see, now they're just asking for more again.
We would do
Just
Gabbard.
like this.
Well,
politician.
but not if we, excuse me, Jim, I'm sorry.
He's
but
talking
we-
about the street.
I'm talking about number 6. Number 6 is gonna put a bad, leave a bad taste in people's mouths.
It's
I
only
see.
half
Not the
of
other
what
one.
we need
Okay.
to fix
Because
the
it's not gonna
road.
fix the problem.
Okay.
That's
Or
what's
their comment will be, well, they didn't fix my road.
Yeah.
They didn't fix that road, and
Yeah.
they didn't fix
But-
that because
but
of
in
course.
but in any solution though, in any solution
Because there's
that we
only
come
half
to,
what- half
if we
of what we
had,
need.
Right.
if we had an allocation of, here's our expenditures, I mean, this, hell, this is part of the reason why we have a capital improvement plan. But now all of a sudden we've got an influx of 1.5 for 5 years, or 1.6 for 5 years. If we can add the criteria of these are the projects over the next 5 years that we want to be able to do, and then we can check them off the list. So if we can add that to a capital improvement plan with those additional $1.5 million expenditures, and we can sell that to the community like, okay, here's 1.5, here's the additional streets that we're planning on fixing, and this is what your money's gonna buy. And if we can, put that in as part of the, the puzzle, 5 years from now, if we don't finish it, that's on us.
Yeah, but if you list specific streets, you're like, well, I don't live on that street, so I'm not gonna pass it. That's the problem with when there's levies on the ballot for specific streets, like, okay, we're gonna redo, this street, 165th Avenue.
Well, then,
And then they're like, well, I don't go over there, so I'm gonna vote no.
But then what we can
Yeah,
do is
yeah, that's
we
what I'm
can,
saying.
Yeah.
but, okay, then what we can do is potentially allocate 5 projects. Okay, we don't necessarily need to put that out there, but if we, allocate, this is gonna buy us how many linear roads or linear, or, how
Well, I
many
mean, they have a
miles.
schedule, they know what they, if they had the money, they know what we would do for a
Okay,
second and
well,
third.
we can be specific and general at the same time. And if we meet those criterias over the next 5 years, then, it doesn't matter what streets being done as long as what we've told them is gonna happen, happens.
So let me ask this, so the question is, what we need to know to decide is, can a temporary income tax be earmarked for roads? So that's the thing that we don't know.
Correct.
So that's the
What's
thing that we
language
need to
gonna
know,
look like, yeah.
correct?
Correct.
So that's where we're at.
Correct.
So
Okay.
when can we have an answer?
Well, we have to by.
Well, we can have an executive session next week before the meeting before the meeting, if necessary, to go over the terms prior to the vote.
Yeah, well, I was sitting here thinking, maybe we should sit down and get an idea of what course of action 7 is gonna look like on paper, starting out with, it being a 0.25% income tax increase. It's gonna, it will generate approximately how many thousand annually to fund the road maintenance, when it has to be in by, so it can be in everything like you have here at 5 and 6, just, cause we've talked a lot of generalities, but we don't have any specifics, so we want a 0.25, we want it to be earmarked for roads, and we want it to be temporary for 5 years. And that's the main 3 things I heard. How much is it gonna generate?
About 1.6.
1.6
roughly, at a 0.25% increase.
instead of 6, instead of 0.6. That would fix a lot of roads.
So it generates, the extra 25 would generate an extra 1.6?
Instead of a
1.2.
1.2.
1.2.
is the problem, right?
Double.
Okay, 1.2
Double what?
instead of 6, okay.
Is that right?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
If
What-
the voters were to pass a
1.25.
1.25.
0.25 increase in the income tax,
Right.
that would generate roughly
1.2.
1.2.
Should be about 1.5 or 1.6.
Okay, so
Oh, wow.
It's 1.6.
That would.
That would solve the road problem for at least those 5 years, right?
Within 5 years, we can have a lot cleaned up. That's for certain. Cleaned up, solved.
So in reality, Cherie and Mark and Pat, in terms of gathering the information, in the questions that have been asked, is it realistic to expect something to be done? I'm not in town next week. I will not be a part of the vote because I'm gonna be out of town. It's been planned since last year.
Yes.
I know, since last year, so, and, nobody, but girls' trip, so that's not changing.
Maybe we can do a partial decision on 1, 2, 3, and 4.
What? I'm not interested. I'm looking at,
Right now, I mean.
I'm not looking at any
So
of
then-
this.
Okay.
I'm looking
Because
only
if you
at
end up doing
the
number
big one.
7, then
The big one is
Yeah, the big one, that's all these
Okay.
piddly ones
Then
mean
we don't
nothing
even
to
need
me.
to worry about 1 and 4.
Yeah, for me, no.
Okay.
They just don't have any true significance.
While he's looking that up, Jim, to your point that you think anything with the title income tax is not gonna make it, it's not
Right.
gonna do us any good. That is a legitimate concern, I think. We don't wanna sit here and do futile things. But on the other hand, I do like the idea that we're passing, or in this case, putting on the ballot, good legislation. I mean, isn't that ultimately our job?
Absolutely.
It's a good idea because it would solve the problem.
That
Not a Band-Aid.
it's
Well, I don't even call these other options a Band-Aid because they don't even get us close
Well,
to-
don't forget that
to
this,
covering the gap.
right,
that we need to cover.
there was, at least in my view, there's respect for what Lebanon will cough up in addition. My view is this is dead in the
Almost
water,
1.7.
and I think they would give us less.
But there's just as many people out there though too, Jim, that say, you know, you're not fixing the problem, and they're gonna vote for it because of that. I mean, far too many times there's just, putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. It's not fixing
I
it.
think
It's
we've got a lot
it's
of
only.
comments here where we wanna make ourselves believe that. I sure hope you're right.
Well, I mean, look at here, okay? If we were to do a property tax, there's a variety of things that's not going to happen. I've got like 5 of them, 4 of them. 1.6. That's finding a solution to the problem. Okay, it's actually more than what money was recommended. 2, there's a term. Okay. 3, you're adding renters. All right, you're not just going after property owners. 4, you're adding people living outside the city that work inside the city. Okay, and then 5, it's specific. If we can add the specification to that actual fund, like the property tax, of which we can do. I mean, that's 5 different things or 4 different things that can't be done under property taxes.
And you think that's gonna overwhelm the fact that 42 years we've never changed that number?
I'm not saying it's a good thing, man, but I'm telling you, it's at least addressing and fixing
Yeah.
the problem,
That-
as opposed
I
to.
don't disagree with
So
that.
you're saying we've never done it that way before? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we put a 1.0 in 1973.
Yeah.
One thing I
That
would,
doesn't mean
But
it
the
can't be done now.
dynamics have changed
Changed.
within the
Make
community.
yourself feel good.
one thing I
Hopefully
would
you're
ask
right.
council to
Hey,
think-
won't hurt to try.
one thing I would ask council to consider in terms of the income tax option where it's got a 5-year,
Life.
shelf life, is that, the road challenge is gonna extend beyond 5 years.
Right.
So, although that would generate a substantial amount of money over 5 years and it would be substantially helpful, it would not necessarily be a permanent solution to the structural problem.
Right.
But that's where we build the trust with the community, Pat, and quite honestly,
You'd have to, because you're going to renew it in 5 years.
hell yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
And
you have
if we're going to ask them for $1.5 million a year, we better sure as hell do that. And I don't have a problem with the fact that, say, we're going out and on a ledge and saying, give us that trust factor, and that's why I'm saying, let's give them that linear road number or figure, and let's do it. And when we go within 5 years and we can say, these are the projects, and like you said, you're right, when you said that, if we spell out the 5 different, projects, people will be pissed and say, well, it's not my street. So let's give them specifics but generalities, and let's meet those goals. Let's get that done.
So, but marketing isn't what we need to talk about right now. If you want to do it, you need to talk about ballot language. So we can't even talk about that until we know if we can even do earmarked funds. So,
And that can't be done so quickly.
well, how
It
long would
takes-
it take
Well,
to
it's gotta
figure
be
out?
ballot
Well,
language that's
can we
approved
schedule
by the Board
a
of
tentative special
Elections.
meeting in the last week of July if necessary, if we have to get it done?
Well, probably need to take this a step at a time. The first thing would be to get
Get an
the
answer.
legal opinion.
Yeah.
And we need to coordinate draft language with the Board of Elections prior, because we ran into this problem before
Yeah.
where there was
Yeah.
some
There's a
technical
lot more
glitch.
rules.
Well, we
Um,
can
That's
get
all
that
I
general
know.
information done within the week. Or at least we can get the
Right.
legal opinion next week, and then all that other stuff, could we say next week possibly determine a special meeting if necessary inside the next 2 weeks if it's needed?
Well,
I mean, to get it
I think
approved.
if council's certainly willing to meet in the latter part of July, I think this would require that. I don't
Yeah.
think we'd have this buttoned up.
We'd have no problem with me if that.
I have no
um,
problem.
And what's
Oh,
August the
I'm around.
4th is a work session, correct? Yes.
Believe so.
Just,
But I mean, that would be too late. I mean, we would want
Also,
to
5
before
years
that.
out,
Well,
if it
and
passes,
also,
5
I was
years
just
out,
thinking that we could move the work
showing the
session back.
progress
When I'm
we've done,
thinking-
Actually, yeah, the work session
renewing it
is
isn't
the
going to
fifth.
affect them.
Um,
You've got
Seriously.
to stay in it.
Seriously.
He's gonna go up there and be like,
Yeah.
no,
Yep,
because I'm a conservative.
that's right.
We don't know yet, though, that would.
Okay, so
I don't
my
anticipate
sense
this'll
is you
take
are going
more-
to
more
do
than a
some
couple
research.
days.
Okay,
It will
and that's
take
where we're gonna leave it at, and then you will be you will let us know, okay?
I do
And the,
too.
and the question is it legally sufficient to have to earmark a portion of an income tax
Yes.
increase
Yes,
for specific service?
yes, okay,
And then
All right.
we'll, once we get that answer, we'll do is we'll go ahead and, we'll communicate that, Mark will communicate that with council, and we'll go ahead, based on the guidance in this meeting, or the informal guidance, the preliminary guidance, go ahead and begin crafting draft ballot language immediately and get it over to the county to have them look it over, so that, there's no time for, to reboot this because of the time limit, so it's gotta be right the first time, and then we'll look at the legislative schedule and when we can, schedule a special meeting, or just reschedule the one that was canceled.
okay, cause he's gonna be out the last week in July.
You're out.
We want a positive show of
I am
hands
out.
in favor
My
of
son's
7,
graduating
keepers
basic
down
training. I
to-
really wanna be.
No, you will be
Yeah.
there
Yeah,
for that,
Yeah.
of course.
And it'll
Mayor,
be.
I'm here.
Would we like a positive show of hand of all who's in favor of 7, and Jim can keep his down, and see who else wants to hold
I
theirs
think
up?
I'd vote for it.
2. Oh, I see 2.
Oh, you would?
It was your
3.
idea.
I'll vote for it, yeah.
3. How about you, Matt?
Consider it.
You're just still considering, okay. You're still considering?
Yeah, but I'm not likely, and I don't think he's likely.
So that's what
To
I
do
was
what?
wondering.
To vote
So
for
is
it.
it
After
an
all that.
I'm gonna
effort?
go out
He's
there,
gonna vote.
Is
he's
it an
gonna
effort
vote
in
for it,
totality
but I'm
to
not
even look
gonna
up the
speak
ballot
for it.
language if this is where
Yeah,
we're gonna
because
be?
you know what,
If it's not gonna.
if it's not going to pass, I'm not even gonna dare ask them to do any kind
Right,
of
let's-
research,
so
Then
guys.
you're not
Just
voting to
stop.
raise taxes, you're voting to
Seriously.
put it
Well,
on the
but
ballot.
are you gonna
Let
be
the
here then?
No, I
You
citizens
have
no,
a
I mean, I
vote.
wanna
Are
see
you gonna
if
be here
the
then?
criteria that's
On the
been
end
mentioned
of July?
meets the
Mhm.
criteria,
So
yeah, I'd
1,
very seriously
2,
consider voting
3,
for it.
4. That's 4
Absolutely.
people. Even if we decide to be no,
That
and
doesn't
he's
help
no,
me.
that's 4, right?
1, 2, 3.
Amy,
He's
Mark.
not gonna be
It's-
here.
You're not gonna be here.
He's not
that's
gonna be
right.
here.
Can we do a meeting another week, the week before, the 3rd week in July?
I'll be here the 3rd week. I'll be at like 27, 28, 29.
Third week's a work session.
No,
it's,
we're off.
It's canceled,
No, we're
but we
off.
could have a
can-
meeting.
We
have a
can-
regular meeting.
We could meet the day
This is a
before the
regular
5th.
meeting.
I mean, the 1st is a Saturday, 2nd, we can meet the 3rd. The 5th is a Wednesday.
No, I would wanna meet in sometime
You wanna
in
do it
July.
I'm around. But
The
you
3rd
two are the
week.
ones that really need to be there if you want to pass,
He's
I think.
considering.
Well, and again, it's really council's call, on how procedurally you wanna do this, but I think it would be helpful to the staff if if the council members knew where they were on this issue, because it's pretty clear. I mean, if what the proposal would be, it would, if legally sufficient, it would be a 1.25% rate for 5 years, with the additional revenue generated by the additional 0.25% dedicated to the road maintenance program. If there isn't 4 votes for that,
Why waste our
then
time?
I-
I agree. That's the thing with
So are there 4 votes or not?
Well, but you wouldn't be for it at all?
No, he wouldn't be for it.
Oh, you're not for
No,
it
look.
at all?
Well, if that's the only option, right?
Yeah, I mean,
if
you
everybody,
know,
if everybody
you-
kind of
And
lines up
you
under
are
7,
allowing
You've got-
people to
You're-
make
not
a
yet.
decision for
No.
themselves.
Yeah, I don't want you throwing, you know, the baby out with the bathwater here. I mean, I've been, very consistently, and there's an option that's not even listed here that I very seriously consider.
But-
Hold on, please, let me finish, please.
Okay.
And you've got Councilmember Monroe that's on the fence as well. We're talking about Mr. Norris here, and we're talking about an absence. Okay? Now, if we're talking about where we have to put in a meeting to make it, an absence a yes, then let's do it. But I mean, don't throw
well,
me.
here's
No.
what, okay, here, but
I mean,
if you want it to pass,
if you've
just
got-
have a meeting when you know
If
that
you've got
you
3
and you
out
were
of
there.
5
And
criteria, I mean,
But here's what I want to say to you, Matt. The whole meeting and the whole discussion that we have had, you have shown your support. You've identified this point and this point and this point and this point in support of it. And then for you to come to a meeting because you know it's going to pass and vote no is, to me, absolutely ridiculous. And I'm going to say that because you have sat here in this whole meeting supporting it. You've said to Norris, you've made point after point after point after point. Because you can vote no because it's going to pass is not ethical. I'm sorry, that's
That's-
exactly what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying that, Mayor, at all, and let's not throw the word ethics involved in this
That's the point,
conversation.
because if
okay?
it fails, then you can say you voted no against it.
That's right.
Well, but
And that to me is an
no.
ethical issue, and
that's-
I can say that.
so,
Okay.
but my point is, it seems to me that it'll pass if you 2 are there. So
Yeah.
have a meeting, schedule a meeting for when you 2 are going to be there, and there you go, and then we're done.
I'll be there.
Because you can go, you're going to be around.
Oh, yeah.
So wherever we fall, it doesn't matter because you got 4.
My point with you is that you have consistently listened and you have not made points in support of it.
Yeah.
That's the piece I respect. Your piece is, though, you've been marketing this, you've been marketing it to all of us. Wendy, I wanted to make that point. There's a big difference.
I hear what you're saying.
There's a big difference.
So that's one issue. But the other issue is if you want it to pass and you need to do it in a hurry, have the meeting the 3rd week in July, and there you go.
With all due respect, that doesn't address what Amy's talking about with
I know.
Matt.
I know.
You say no, Matt. Can you qualify
I
that?
can qualify that.
Clarify it, Nick.
I
Can you
clarify
clarify?
or qualify. That's either way. My only indecision on this is really the amount of 1.6, because I'm almost done with what I'd like to see. I think it could be done with less money. I mean, I think there's areas that I think we can cut. And I mean, I'll be putting together a proposal
Well,
with
there's
that.
already-
So I mean, when I've got it. Pretty narrow.
I have been hearing you say that
For
since
4
we
years.
had this
For 4
discussion.
years.
And last time we talked about putting something on the ballot. Now, I see several
We've got 4 points here.
suggestions.
We can
That's
try
right.
these right here.
If there are more, let's put them on the table so we know what we're talking about. If you have some ideas for cutting, let's put them on the table. But I have no hesitancy about voting for this measure that we've outlined here. A fiscal conservative would vote for this measure for at least 2 reasons. Number one, we're not raising taxes. We're bringing the issue to the people, let the people decide if they want good roads or not, and if they're willing to pay for them. And number 2, it only makes sense to pay less now instead of more later. A fiscal conservative would pay less
Because
now.
regardless, we're gonna be forced into a position where we eliminate the tax credit. If we can't get something passed, we're gonna be forced into
Yep.
making a decision that is not the correct one.
In other words,
and
the problem
a
is
harsh-
we should just grow.
politically correct one,
a
that's for
very
sure.
harsh decision.
Does a fiscal conservative allow a structural deficiency in the budget like this to go on and on and on and get worse and worse and worse? Absolutely not. I mean, I think this is an easy case to make to the public. If anyone ever came to us and said, Matt or Wendy or Jim or Matt, I thought you were a fiscal
Especially
conservative.
since it's temporary.
I have, this is the closest thing to an absolute full-on solution that I've seen. So, I mean, you know, if I had to look at it and, you know, supported it the way that it's being recommended, I would say yes.
Because
But
they need to know
there's-
whether to put the time into doing the legal research.
Well, you've got 4.
But
You
here's
should
the
have
here's
four.
the bottom line. We could have a meeting and somebody could get sick, somebody could get hurt, somebody may not be at a meeting. Guys, things happen.
I'm going to the beach, I can come back without a light.
So come on, guys. We're counting on 4 right now, quote 4.
I'm
But
always
anything
hurting
could
myself.
happen,
Jim.
and somebody may not be available.
Jim, would you
It's
vote for
bigger
this?
than that.
I'm not clear on where you are, Jim.
You gotta do what's best for the city too, and its citizens.
And you
And
mean
give
by that,
I mean, don't halfway fix the roads, give them the roads they
I'm
deserve.
not about halfway fixing, I think that's what they would give us, and I've said that from the get-go.
And, well,
I
that's,
don't think
that
they're
would
gonna
be
get
their
See, that's
choice.
it's been voted down every single time that way, Jim.
But that would
it's
be
been
their
voted
choice.
down.
Close
every single-
votes than the income tax votes.
But I would argue your point that it's not gonna pass is not a legitimate reason not to put it on the ballot.
Correct.
If you
I'm not
support
arguing
it,
with that.
what's that?
Right, I agree with you.
So that's why I'm not sure
Because I
where you
have
sit.
said my piece,
Yeah.
and I would vote for this.
There's your
And see
question.
what happens. Yeah.
I am with Amy though, from the standpoint of, and Matt, I'm still listening as to why you would, and you made some good points.
Doesn't
Go
this,
on, and now you're saying whatever you're saying.
and isn't it important, Matt, if we want to actually pass something, actually solve the problem, wouldn't it be a strong message if we unanimously recommended this to the people? I don't know that you need to decide today, but maybe think about it and we could tell you tomorrow.
But at least you have at this point a
You got
majority
it.
that
You got
would
it.
want to
Yeah.
move forward.
You have a 5.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
know
sure.
where.
We'll do the
So-
research and
Okay.
give you your options
So should-
based on the law.
I'm
and
gonna
then,
tentatively plan on a meeting the 3rd week of July.
you know.
Now, I'm not gonna be here the 3rd week of July,
See, he's and his has been planned a year, so there's no way he can
and with the 4th week.
change either.
How do we,
You're
how
good
do
Are
for
you
it.
gone the whole
That's what
4th
my
week?
point is.
Are you gone the whole 4th
Is
week
there
of
a
July?
different day?
Family Day's the 29th, then they graduate on the 30th. So
the
I think,
28th
That's the 1st is a Saturday.
so I think I'm gonna leave here the 28th.
That's what we need though.
So Monday the 27th?
Who's not
You're-
gonna be here
Well, it
next
would be
week?
Monday then, the 27th,
I'll
right?
move
Monday the
people.
27th, 27, 28,
You
29,
couldn't be
30,
here.
31.
I'll move people around.
Why don't we
Yeah.
Why don't we do this,
The
folks?
27th, Monday the
We'll go
27th.
ahead and get
Listen to that.
we'll go to work on the legal question and in terms of the ballot language, and then we'll send it out by email, and then solicit your availability, and we'll schedule a meeting based upon the availability of the most of the council, or as many of the council members as possible. And obviously, we want to go earlier than later in case there's some kind of a glitch, which has happened before. But
Well, it'll be approved by the Board of Elections
Yeah.
before it gets
Yeah.
voted on. There won't be, I mean, that's a,
yeah, so we may have an answer back to you quicker than we think. We just don't know. why don't we just take it a step at a time? Let's get the answers first, and then
I just
we'll-
wanted to make sure that you don't do a lot of work and then it doesn't happen. Because
Well,
that's,
I think we need to
very
know,
unfair.
we need to know the answer to this question anyway. I mean, even
Yeah.
if it doesn't, doesn't go anywhere this year, it may come up again as an option, going forward. So I mean, I'm not trying
So,
to.
then the only problem is,
give away
if
Mark's
you find
time.
out, Mark, that
it's so
you can't
cheap.
earmark it,
Well, what does that
then
mean?
we don't have a solution.
Yeah, then we just wasted an hour of discussion.
So you have to keep your fingers
Well,
crossed.
that's another thing. I mean, like I said, there's 3 or 4 sets of criteria that have been brought up here. And one of it is whether or not we can earmark it, because if we can earmark it, then we fall into the exact same problem, of which is what Jim is talking about. We can't earmark it.
Well, but we still, the underlying principle is still the same. If we can't earmark it, but we still pave another freaking 75% of Center Lane roads that we couldn't, then we're saying, this is what it's for, and this is what you're
If
getting.
council could give the voters a pledge,
Yeah, and I have no problem, like.
even if it's not earmarked.
And
if we can
that's
give them our
not
pledge
necessarily
that
a
we'll-
bad thing either too, and I can throw that out because, because either way, we've talked about this, that we can play a juxtaposition with funds, whether it's earmarked or not, like you
Right.
brought up before. So if the pledge is made.
And we
you
don't
know,
honor it, we can get voted out.
Well, not only we get voted out, but it won't get renewed either.
Right.
And so, and that's Pat's biggest, I think, potential concern. And, I mean, and that's,
You can keep tab of expenditures toward the account
Sure.
easily, which we would know and we can publicize.
So we can report to our citizens.
Town Hall News can say, for
and that's why.
being spent this year.
And that's why the concept of
That's
linear
not
miles
difficult to
and
do, no,
or
we
our
would
pledge
do that.
along with that is, if it comes to 15 miles being laid, okay, and we generally know what the projects are, and we can check those off within a 5-year span and tell our people that that's exactly what's been done, and you can, that's part of the contract, whether it can be earmarked or not.
We could keep a box top of Town Hall News. with
Hell, for
this
that
is an
matter, we
update.
can put that as a part of the website. Check, check, check as it's being done.
And we could, pledge to the citizens, and we're gonna
All
give
right,
them
Pat,
a
Well,
report
can
every year.
But it has to pass first, okay?
Yeah.
Otherwise there's no
Right.
revenue to check
Well,
off on the
I mean,
box.
Right, but we can pledge to give them that
Okay,
information.
I don't think that's our biggest
To
problem.
help pass it.
Yeah.
Did you wanna say something?
Well, now, Matt, you're still leading us in discussion, but
Yeah.
we
Just
haven't
giving you all your good marketing ideas.
Yeah.
If anyone has a principled argument against what we're talking about, I'd like to hear.
Well, now Matt's left us with the thought that he has other ideas with regard to what we really need to be spending on.
Actually, to be quite honest with you, I'm that close that, next week I'll be more than happy to provide you with the detailed information as far as what
We
I
need to
can.
go into executive session.
And we leave here with
I'm
that
saying that.
statement from you
I'm,
and
Jim,
also a no vote.
I'm saying I'm leaning, if right now, if the criteria is all in play here and we can do this, I'd pop 90% give you my yes. My support behind it.
Okay, well, we've all heard what everybody's had to say then, and we've got votes anyway. So we're waiting here.
Okay, we'll wait to hear from you all.
Okay, and we do need to, I'm gonna ask council to go into executive session for discussion on personnel. Would the council like to do discussion
Yeah,
items
we'll
first?
do discussion. Do you have any
Although there's
discussion?
nobody here, there's no visitors
I think
here.
we've had a good discussion.
Okay, you're good?
Let's do it some more.
Jim, Norris, anything?
Only that we've lost some very, very quality
Yeah.
citizens here
Yeah.
recently,
Tragic.
Bob Butcher and Bill Fisher. It's a hard week for some people who know these people because their roots are deep in the community, and I just would give them that respect and try to bring it up some other time and
Yeah.
moment of silence if we can keep that together, but thank you.
No.
I don't either, so is there a motion to go into
I-
executive
I
session?
move we go into executive session.
This will be a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G1, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual.
Who was the second, please, on that? Okay.
Are you,
I'm gonna call the roll.
yes.
Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe?
Yes.
Mayor Brewer?
Yes.
Mr. Messer?
Yep.
Mr. Deary?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yep.